If you're genuinely trying to understand your behavior and grow from it, you are ready for this next module. And that's the link between gaslighting and emotional avoidance. If you've ever caught yourself manipulating a situation or making someone else question what really happened, maybe you've said, "You're overreacting," or "That's not how it happened," you might have wondered, *, am I gaslighting them? *, and if the answer is possibly yes, it's time to get curious. Not to shame yourself, not to beat yourself up, but to understand *, why * it's happening. Because more often than not, gaslighting doesn't start from a place of wanting to control others. It can actually come from trying to avoid something that feels even scarier, our own emotions. Gaslighting, in its simplest form, is about distorting someone else's reality. But for some people, it's not about dominance or cruelty, it's about not knowing how to face difficult feelings. Emotional avoidance is a defense mechanism. It's what we do when emotions like guilt, shame, fear, or sadness feel overwhelming. If no one ever taught you how to sit with those feelings, or how to talk about them safely, chances are you've learned to do the next best thing: avoid them completely. And gaslighting can become a way to do that. Let's say you're feeling anxious or insecure about something, but you don't know how to express it, or maybe you feel like you're not allowed to express it. So what happens? Instead of saying, "I'm feeling off," or "I'm not coping," you start shifting the spotlight. Maybe you tell the other person they are being too sensitive, or you deny something happened. It might feel like self-protection, but what it's really doing is pushing your discomfort onto someone else, so you don't have to deal with it yourself. Another thing that often drives this is a fear of confrontation. Some people will do absolutely anything to avoid conflict, especially if you grew up in an environment where conflict always led to shouting, rejection, or even punishment. So instead of facing something head-on, you twist the facts or change the story just enough to make the tension disappear, at least for a while. It might feel like you're keeping the peace, but over time, that avoidance builds up. It damages trust. It leaves the other person feeling confused or even doubting themselves, while you stay stuck in a loop of avoidance. And underneath all of this is a deep resistance to vulnerability. Being vulnerable means showing others that you're not perfect, that you get things wrong, that you feel afraid, that you're human. But if you've learned that vulnerability equals weakness or danger, then of course you're going to find ways to protect yourself from it. And sometimes that protection looks like gaslighting, minimizing, dismissing, controlling the story, so that you don't have to reveal what's really going on inside. You might not even be doing it consciously. It can happen automatically, especially if you've been doing it for a long time. But when it becomes a pattern, it gets harder to regulate your emotions properly. Instead of feeling them and moving through them, you push them down. You hide from them. And in the process, you might be making other people carry the emotional weight that you're not ready to deal with. So, where do you go from here? The first step is recognizing it. And if you're still listening, chances are you've already started doing that. You've started noticing the moments where you deflect, or where you deny, or where you manipulate someone else's perception to avoid feeling uncomfortable. That awareness is massive. It's the beginning of change. Now the next step is about finding better ways to manage your emotions, ones that don't involve pushing people away or distorting reality. That might mean working with a therapist, or even just starting small with some self-reflection. Try journaling, meditation, or simply learning how to name what you're feeling. Guilt, shame, embarrassment, sadness. The more you practice sitting with those emotions, the less scary they become. And practice expressing them, too. You don't have to pour your heart out in every conversation. But even saying something like, "I'm feeling overwhelmed," or "that conversation made me uncomfortable," is a step in the right direction. It's about replacing those defensive habits with honest, open, vulnerable ones, even if they feel awkward at first. You can also work on your communication skills. Focus on listening without interrupting or trying to correct someone's version of events. Try to understand where they are coming from instead of jumping into defense mode. Let people have their experience without needing to reshape it to fit your comfort. The truth is, emotional avoidance is exhausting. It keeps you stuck, and it keeps the people around you confused or hurt. But when you start facing your emotions instead of hiding from them, something incredible happens. You start to feel more in control, not by controlling others, but by understanding yourself. You start building real connections. Ones based on trust, honesty, and genuine understanding. So, if you've been using gaslighting, even unintentionally, as a way to avoid emotions, it's time to stop running. Emotions aren't the enemy. They are messages. They are human. And learning to sit with them, express them, and move through them is one of the most freeing things you'll ever do. In our next session, we'll talk about how all of this connects to self-awareness, because without that, none of this growth can really happen. But for now, just take a breath. Be kind to yourself. You're doing something powerful. You're looking inward, and that's where real change begins.